Hi and welcome everyone to our 46th episode of The Little Inside. Just like every week, actually, my name is still Tobi, and this week we're going to talk a little bit about the power of forgiveness. Very important topic. So let's get started right after the intro. Forgiveness is essential to move on in life. If we are not forgiving, then we usually get stuck in our past. And the way we keep ourselves stuck in our past is, for example, through guilt and shame, or regrets, remorse. You're looking back at your life and you feel kind of, oh, I messed up. I made a mistake. I did something wrong, and I can forgive myself. That what I did was just too much. It was just too bad. It was just too much. It gives me a feeling of shame and so forth. And so it keeps people trapped in the energy, in the residual energy that this past action has created. And it is highly debilitating. It actually doesn't allow them to do something that's better. In other words, it doesn't allow them to move on. The way out of that past trap, of this energetic trap, is forgiveness. And forgiveness helps you to kind of let go of your past and move on and do something that is incredibly inspiring, that is much better than what you did in the past, and that helps you to kind of grow as a person, grow as a spiritual being. It helps you to grow in all areas of life. Those people who are knowingly or unknowingly continuously stuck in what they did and who they were are kind of doomed to repeat who they were and what they did. In this episode, I'm going to talk about 3 steps that lead to forgiveness, with forgiveness being the 3rd step. And of course, you can't just jump in and forgive. Let's say you did something wrong in the past. There was an action that you are still feel really ashamed about, or you feel really bad about, even today, even if it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago and so forth. What you did is still weighing heavy on your shoulders. It's still perceived as a burden. You can't just jump in and say, okay, I'm forgiving myself for having done that. There have to be steps that lead up to forgiveness. And many people don't know those steps, and they try to forgive themselves and end up only with kind of something that is similar to forgiveness, but it doesn't have the real impact and the real power that true forgiveness would have. The first step is understanding. Forgiveness has to be preceded by understanding, and understanding is incredibly important. Let's say someone else did something bad to you in the past. You've been mistreated by your parents, for example. I give you my own example. I have been raised for quite a long time, for about 7 years, by my grandparents. And my grandmother, she had this habit of continuously comparing me to other classmates or other friends that I had at this time. So, for example, when we wrote an exam at school, she would then, if I had, in Germany we have this marking system, this grading system. It's 1, and 1 is the best, and 6 is the worst. And when I had a 3 in the exam, then my grandmother would immediately ask, well, what does your friend have? And my friend, he was always better than me. He always had the better grades. And so I reluctantly admitted that he had the 2 or he had the 1. And so she would go, oh, interesting. Now I wonder what his parents did better, or I wonder what he has done better than you. And so then she would proceed with, for example, not talking to me for an entire day, to just kind of totally withdraw her love and her attention from me, to punish me with that. And this leaves an energetic residue behind. It creates a certain type of personality that craves for attention and love coming from other people. And as long as I cannot forgive my grandmother, as long as I cannot forgive myself for holding on to that, I'm kind of stuck in that people-pleasing personality. What I have to perform so that I'm loved in return. And if I'm not performing good enough, if I'm not as good as other people around me, then I risk not being loved. Now, that is kind of the first step to understanding. It is becoming aware of the actual issue. I don't mean really digging around in the past or trying to find out why am I so messed up, but rather noticing that there are certain things in our life that have happened that have hurt us. And these are very obvious things for all of us. We don't have to do endless digging, endless asking why. For understanding, that is not needed. Understanding is a bit more simple than that. I want to simply understand in terms of people are only able to act according to their current state of consciousness. They can't act beyond themselves. It's impossible. We're all prisoners of our mental, emotional makeup. We can't go beyond ourselves. Just like this is true for myself, it is also true for everybody else around me. People can only act the way they have learned to act. They don't know better. And so if you contemplate like this, in my example here, I would then contemplate my grandmother. Well, she didn't know any better. She couldn't act beyond herself in this very moment. She could only repeat what was inside of her. So since I have suffered immensely from that in my life, I can only imagine how she must have suffered in her life from the same condition. So I bring awareness into that, and slowly and gradually, by contemplating like this, I start to understand that just like myself, my grandmother is a victim of her own conditioning. Now that is a very powerful type of understanding that we can create towards other people, that is concerning other people. But it's the same for ourselves. Back in our past, when we still messed up in ways that make us cringe even today, then contemplate. You couldn't act in any different way back in the past. It was impossible for you to be or to react or to respond in any different way. It was truly limited to that very one response that came out of you. If you would have a choice, of course you would have chosen to act well. We all would. But we did not, because we were in that moment limited. Our consciousness was at that particular level during those days in the past. Now that is how we create an understanding. You contemplate in those terms. We cannot go beyond ourselves. We're all limited by our own state of mind, our own state of consciousness, if you will. The second step then lies in accepting the fact that we're all human beings, that we all try our best to create happiness for ourselves and others. So the first step is knowing that we are limited by ourselves and our conditioning, our upbringing, the surrounding and so forth. The second step is accepting that it is a human thing. It is just the way we all are and the way we all work. This acceptance is really important. I accept what I did in my past. I did it. It is done. And what helps me to accept that is to know that because of my past, I am a better person now. Because of the mistakes that I made yesterday and the consciousness, the awareness that I bring into that, I have the choice to do better today, to do better now. And that is the great learning process. Instead of feeling guilty and shameful about what I did, I can also feel more like, wow, here I noticed what that doesn't work out. This does not lead to happiness for sure. So because of knowing that, I can act differently today. That's the great opportunity. And that can only come about if there is acceptance. Okay, I accept the mistakes that I made in the past. Yes, I did wrong. I did things that led to suffering and stress, both within myself and others. But through accepting that, I also acknowledge the fact that I can do differently right now. And that leads directly to the third step. The third step is forgiveness itself. Because you truly understood and you truly accepted who you were, who another person was at the time, you can then really proceed to forgive them. That means you let go of the past. You shift your attention from what was and how you feel guilty about what was to having learned from what was to do differently so you can create something that's better and you can move on unburdened. You're not weighed down by your past. You are now free to use your past as a fuel to create a better, sustainable, and beautiful future, both for yourself and others. So in our mistakes, in our mess-ups, there is this unique opportunity for all of us to learn to grow and to actually go beyond ourselves, to go beyond our suffering, beyond our stress, and share a more beautiful, more meaningful life with other people all around you. That's the great opportunity that comes only from the many times that we mess up. We move on by realizing that the past is done. It is unchangeable. And we move on by realizing that the decisions that you make right now, in this moment, shape your life from now on. And that's one of your greatest powers, is the decisions that you make right now. Are they leading to long-term happiness and benefit, both for yourselves and all others around you? Go ahead, do it. If they lead to harm, if they lead to more of what you have experienced in your past, don't do them. Abandon them. Do yourself a favor and get out of your past, because you can make a difference. You can change. That change is up to you. You don't have to be paralyzed by what you did. In fact, it is all about what you do right now. So that's all that comes to mind for episode 46, all about forgiveness. I hope that these 3 steps to forgiveness have been meaningful and helpful to you. And if you do have any questions or comments you would like to share, please feel free to write them down in the comment section below. I'm always happy to read your comments, always happy to know that it helps. And I'm always happy to know also that some of you are very curious and you come up with questions, and that's what this platform is supposed to do. It's supposed to help spread meaningful information, in my opinion. And I think that's good enough for this week, and I'm looking forward to see all of you again next Wednesday. Bye-bye.